What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to Redonkulous Gaming. Today we are going to get into some beta gameplay in Shadowlands with our Blood Death Knight. And we're going to be taking the Kyrian Covenant, which is going to grant us the ability Shackle the Unworthy. If you're not familiar with this ability, this is where you admonish your target for their past transgressions. This reduces the damage that they deal to you by 5%. And yes, I'm going to pause right on that 5% number. Only a damage reduction of 5%. However, you're going to be doing a dot that it comes out as arcane damage over 14 seconds that hits for 175% of your attack power. So it's a relatively weak dot considering the fact that it's done over 14 seconds. Now, where this ability gets a little complicated is that you actually want it on targets that are going to live the longest, and you want that dot up for the full duration of those 14 seconds. The reason for that is that while that dot is active on a target, each rune that you spend with your attacks is going to reduce the cooldown of those runes by 4 seconds. So your runes are going to refresh a lot faster than they would have if you did not have Shackle the Unworthy. So that's the primary value. You're going to be able to get your rune spenders out more frequently. You're going to build up your runic power, and that's going to turn into more death strikes for you, which overall increases the healing done and your overall tankiness. So for the sake of these videos, we always want to answer 3 questions. First and foremost, how does it feel? Is the ability fun? Is it a button that you look forward to pushing, or is it just something that just is kind of meh? We're going to look at the overall ability strength and try to figure out if it's something that you should be chasing for the duration of an entire expansion. And then we're going to look at the viability of that ability. In other words, is this more of a dungeon ability? Is it a raid-only ability? Is it both? Can I do more than just one type of content with it? And to just jump right in, we're going to talk a little bit about Shackle the Unworthy and the fact that it's on a 1-minute cooldown. So it's a relatively short cooldown. And considering the fact that, first and foremost, you're a tank and your sole purpose is living, the immediate mitigation that you get from Shackle the Unworthy is incredibly underwhelming. Reduces the damage that they deal to you by 5%. You put this thing up on a boss, he's only hitting you 5% less hard. It's only up for a period of 14 seconds. So overall, that's about 25% uptime, give or take a percent. And the fact that it's on for 25% and then it's it's on cooldown for 75% of the duration, there's a good balance there in terms of uptime. However, the overall benefit that you're getting is not necessarily the outright mitigation that it gives you. It actually comes from the ability to refresh your runes faster, therefore generating more runic power, and then dumping that into either damage through death coil or into your tankiness, your healing via death strike. So overall, those are the things that you're getting if you decide to go with the Kyrian Covenant. Now, how does the ability feel? Is it fun? Is it something that makes the class a little bit more enjoyable? The overall answer there is yeah, absolutely. When you have Shackle the Unworthy up on a target, it actually changes the way that you play the game. It changes your rotation a little bit. It makes it so that you want to almost go into a Shackle the Unworthy with as many runes up as possible, so that you can ultimately make sure that you're casting as many rune skills as possible so that it's off cooldown faster and that you can get more of them out. And again, that turns into runic power, that turns into more healing, that turns into more damage. But it's going to change the way that you play a little bit, and that's kind of neat. As far as the ability strength, the outright strength of the mitigation is terrible. It's not strong at all. 5% is nothing in this game, where you can get one shot kind of out of nowhere. So that's cause for concern. But again, the strength of the ability does not necessarily come from the outright mitigation gain. It comes through the throughput that you gain by faster rune regeneration, by faster runic power generation, and all those things work hand in hand. So this is certainly an ability that feels fun. You look forward to pushing the button. Where it starts to feel bad is on trash, quite frankly, because you can only have it up on one target. It's not something that you can put out on the entire pack. And unless you pick the right target, the target that's going to live the longest in each trash pack, you're not getting the most benefit that you would out of it. So I would say in dungeons, especially lower dungeons, where things die a little bit faster, or even in raid where trash gets melted or AoE'd together, the ability is not going to feel very good. It's going to feel pretty lackluster overall. But when you come and face off against bosses, if we're talking like a Tyrannical week for Mythic Plus, or if you're talking about the raid setting, that's where you start to see the value of Shackle and the Unworthy a little bit more, because your healing throughput's going to be that much more. You're going to have more and more runes on cooldown, off cooldown faster and faster. So all that stuff starts to add up over the duration of a fight. So it actually, you start to see the viability coming and talking about the above two criteria. How does it feel, and the ability strength. So it's a fun ability because it changes your playstyle a little bit. You have to plan for it. The ability strength is, like I said, out of the box, relatively weak, but you're going to have to play to it and make it a strength. So it can be strong, but I would say it's situationally strong, which means that you're likely going to get the most bang for your buck out of it in boss type scenarios. So going into each and every boss, making sure that that's up and you have that ready to go. If a boss fight lasts 3 minutes, then even in a dungeon, then that's going to be up for at least a total, 25% of the time. So you're going to have that available for just shy of a minute over the course of the 3-minute fight. And so that feels pretty good, and just knowing that your overall throughput's going to be higher during that time feels pretty good. So it's a fun ability. It's a strong ability if used properly. But the overall viability, we've kind of alluded to it already, is that of probably more competitive gameplay against harder bosses, more difficult bosses, things that live longer. And then because of the fact that you actually have to set it up and plan for it and play around the skill itself, the viability is really going to come down to you as a player and how you're using the ability. If you're just someone who just adds it as part of your rotation, as a set it, forget it, you're likely not going to get the most value out of this ability. But it is going to have its places, and there are likely going to be a good amount of blood DKs out there that decide to align with Kyrian as a result of some of the additional throughput that they're getting, both in terms of the tankiness and the self-healing, as well as just the ability to refresh their runes faster. Now, if we zoom out and we talk about the Death Knight class outside of just tanking, this is certainly going to come into play for Unholy and for Frost as well, because this is something that is going to be very appealing to people who off-spec or play either of those specs as mains as well. So overall, I'd say this is one of the better Death Knight class abilities, but specifically it certainly has its place in tanking. But just be prepared that if you do align yourself with Kyrian, you're likely going to have to change your play style and at least your rotation just a little bit, just so that you can plan around Shackle the Unworthy. Now, the other thing that you get by joining up with the Kyrian is the Covenant-wide ability for every class, which is Summoning Steward, and that's where you have your own little bastion owl dude that can come and help you out and give you a couple potions. Those potions come in handy to cleanse off bleed, poison, all the stuff that you can't do as a Death Knight. And so that feels really good to not just have to rely on a healer to be able to cleanse yourself. So that's something that getting that extra utility and getting that added to your toolkit, something that you didn't have before, that feels great to be able to go into a fight and say, oh, don't worry, I'm a Kyrian. I can go ahead and cleanse this off me, healer. Worry about cleansing the rest of the group. So you get some extra utility in the form of your Summoned Steward, and then obviously it comes with a few select dungeon abilities as well. So when you look at it hand in hand, you're getting a pretty good overall package between Summoned Steward and Shackle the Unworthy, but Summoned Steward really is just additive to what the Death Knight toolkit is already in Blood Spec. So let me know your thoughts. Please tell me if I missed the mark. Let me know how you think this is going to project as Shadowlands releases. As of filming this video, we are just over a month away from release, and Death Knight is in a pretty good place overall. It feels relatively the same as live right now, but what I will say is that having Ossuary as a baseline ability, something that's already passive, is a very good thing. So it frees up that that talent row for you. Additionally, being able to summon your own ghoul for a minute is also a nice, more class identity type thing. So that's really cool. But the overall utility of having a Death Knight in your group has absolutely skyrocketed with Anti-Magic Zone. So being able to have that as baseline makes it so that you may be a tank that is in very, very high demand, especially in the Mythic Plus arena, and even in Raid, just bringing that Anti-Magic Zone. So things have changed for the better for Death Knights in Shadowlands, that is for certain.